Thursday, pick up where we left off yesterday. Sorry, I think today's Wednesday. Soon, rising above the reef thunder, the boy could hear the measured sound of the savage chanting. They were after him. Looking back over his shoulder, he could see the dark shapes of the canoes rounding the southern headland. Moonlight shone on 100 wet paddles. That's 50. As they dipped and rose to the rhythm of the chant. It was too dark to see the Eaters of Men themselves, but their wild song grew ever more savage as they advanced. The breeze was almost dead aft. The crab crawl sail swelled smooth and taut, rigging as a block of the silver against the sky. The little canoe, so artfully built, ran with swell and favoring wind, laying knots behind her. She was as fleet and graceful as the flowing gulls. That means she moves real smoothly. But the Eaters of Men were strong paddlers with death in their hearts. Their matu tabu had been profaned by a stranger. Vengeance powered their muscles. They were tireless. That means they were not getting tired. Ah, and they came. The wind dropped. Uh-oh. If the wind drops, we're in big trouble. The wind dropped imperceptibly at first. Sensing it, Mufasa whistled desperately for Maui. Maui, do not desert me, he prayed. This last time, lend me your help. Soon the black canoes were so close that the boy could see the shine of the dark bodies, the glint of teeth, the flash of ornaments. If the wind died, he was lost. Closer, closer the canoes advanced. Some of the warriors leaped to their feet, brandished their clubs, shouting at the boy across the water. That means brandish means they showed their clubs, they're swinging them, and they're ready to get him. They were a sight to quake the stoutest heart. With every second, they were cutting down the distance with separating their canoes from Mufasa's. Then the wind freshened, just a puff, but enough. Under his impetus, the little canoe skimmed ahead, while the boy's heart gave an upward surge of thanks. Maui had heard his prayer and answered. Day broke, so now they've been paddling all night long. Day broke over the wide Pacific. There were 6 black canoes, paddles flashing, now gaining, now losing. The boy was employing every art and wile of sailing that he knew. As long as the wind held, he was safe. He managed his little craft to perfection, drawing from it every grace of speed and flight. He knew that when coming night the wind would drop, and then he forced the thought from his mind. If the wind deserted him, it would mean that Maui had deserted him too. But the savages would never get him. It would be Moana, the sea god's turn. The boy looked down into the blue depth overside of his smile was grim. Not yet, Moana, he muttered fiercely. You haven't won, not yet. But with failing night, the wind still held. Darkness rose up from the sea. Now, this is kind of crazy if you think about it. These people that are after him are paddling their canoes. They paddled it all night the first night, and now they paddled it all day. Could you imagine paddling a canoe all day long? And now just think about this. They're paddling away from the islands for a whole night and day. If they catch him, fantastic. They got what they were after, but they still have to paddle a whole day and night to get back. And I don't know if that sounds like fun. If they don't catch him, they still have to paddle a day and a night back. Darkness rose up from the seas, enveloping the world. The stars came out clear and bright. The boy searched among them for some familiar constellation to steer by. Should it be Mata Aikai, Little Eyes? Would Mata Aikai lead him back safe to Haikura? And then he saw and knew there, blazed bravely, were the 3 stars of the fish hook of Maui. Maui, his sign. Those were his stars to steer by. They would lead him home. In that moment, he was aware that the chanting of pursuers had fainted, steadily diminishing. At first he could not believe it. He listened intently. Yes, there was no doubt about it. As the breeze freshened, the sound grew fainter each passing moment. The boy quenched his thirst, ate a scrap of poway, fought against sleep as the night waxed and waned. By daybreak, the chanting had ceased altogether. There was no sign of the canoes upon the broad expanse of the sea. The sunburst marched across the swinging waters. Far off, an albatross caught the light of the gold on his wings. Was it Kiwi? Mufasa could not tell. The wind held fresh and fair. The islands had vanished over the curve of the sea, and the eaters of men had vanished with it. But now the great ocean current that was carrying Mufasa so willingly away from Haikura was set dead against him. So when he left Haikura, the ocean current was taking him. Now he's trying to get back, and the ocean current's against him. So this is going to be really difficult to get there. He put his little craft first on one tack and then on another. So you could take it, a tack is going diagonally and diagonally and diagonally and diagonally to try to get up against that current. As long hours passed, it seemed as if he were making no headway at all, even though the canoe still caught smartly through the water. There was a drift and a pull that appeared to make the forward gain impossible. Was it Moana, the implacable one, trying to prevent Mufasa from returning to his homeland? Perhaps, the boy thought wearily, Maui is not yet ready for me to return. Is there still a shadow of fear in my heart? Is that it? He was tired now, and every nerve and sinew tired in the marrow of his bone. That's the inside of your bone, tired of struggle. The long hours passed slowly while the sun climbed. Mufasa lashed the steering paddle and slept wakefully. Yuri lay in the shadow of the sail. The sun sank in its flagellation like the death of the world. Night came and fled. So the first night he left all day. The second night he was out there all day. And now it's the third night on the ocean. Dawn rose up in a burst of flame, and still from Mufasa's canoe skimmed across the sea currents. Now on this tack, now on that. He was to learn in the hours to come that all days and all times would be like that, hours of blazing heat and shuddering sunlight, nights of fitful respite and uneasy sleep. Only the sea and the sky, and the sea and the sky, a bird now and then, a fish leaped from the sea. The boy in a frail canoe, that was all. As one day dragged into another, Mufasa scanned the heavens for some hint of rain. Storm anywhere would have been a welcome relief to this blasting monotony, to this limitless circle of sea. His store of poi vanished. Now that was all that smashed up bananas that had soured and he was eating. The coconuts likewise. So all of his bananas are gone and all of his coconuts are gone. His water was being guarded, drop by drop. But there would come a moment when the last drop must be taken. And then. So he escaped from the shark. He escaped from the wild boar. He escaped from the octopus. He escaped from the eaters of men. And yet he might die in the ocean. The seasons of storm was long past. The days as they came were cloudless and untroubled. Each day broke like a clap of thunder, and night fell softly as a football. The sea was sparkling and benign. The sun's rays were unbroken in their violence. At night, the fishhook of Maui twinkled down like friendly eyes, luring Mufasa on, and torch fish darted up from the lower depths while the black waters gleamed with a strange light. Gradually, as the canoe entered some other current of the sea, the wind slackened and diminished. This wind that had blown him so long. Now the sail began to slat. That means that it wasn't getting pulled, it was just kind of hanging there, and banged in a dead air. The canoe drifted on the slow, majestic tide. The ceaseless heave and surge of the sea lulled the boy to a half-sleep rest. The murmur of the waters playing about the prow sounded like his mother's reassuring voice. Each sun, as it rose and seemed hotter than the of the preceding day, now the face of the ocean was a disk blazing copper. That means it's flat. There's no waves on it to push him, so there's no wind to fill his sail. Masses of seaweed heavy with eggs of fish floated on the sluggish tide, seeming to clutch at the canoe to hold it back from its destination, Hyakura. The cloud of islands, did they really exist? Were they not like the chambered Nautilus, only an iridescent dream by the sea? Sharks appeared as they did always about a craft becalmed. One dorsal fin larger than the other followed the canoe in leisurely peril, just far enough distance so that Mufasa could not see the body that supported it. But he knew from the size of the dorsal that it must be a tiger shark. It began at length to play upon his nerve and set him jumpy. He scarcely dared now at night to lash his steering paddle and sleep. Is the tiger shark going to get him? Is the sun going to bake him? Is he going to be lost at sea? The epic end tomorrow.